Now, I was just talking. Sorry, this is the second part of my video response to Terrance Fisher, and I was just, talking about he uses Titanic as an example of a film with great character development and compares it to Man of Steel, and I was saying, well, let's look at what his version of the Titanic would have been. Had we taken the kind of Zack Snydery route of the one action set piece after another action set piece after another action set piece. Now the whole of A Man of Steel is just that, with very very little character development or emotional moments, and even the emotional moments are given less weight because of the editing and how it's ordered, but secondly because there's no sense of levity in between, in terms of seeing Clark develop without knowing his powers, and then seeing him actually discover his powers, and that whole kind of process of him becoming Superman. That's what it. I thought the film was going to be like, the process of Batman becoming Batman in Batman Begins. So yes. In any case, I kind of went over a brief bit of in the last video of what I thought that kind of Titanic would have looked like, and why we probably wouldn't have enjoyed it. And also another reason, I mean, the reason the Man of Steel is actually not that bad a movie is because there is so much emotional currency in this character of Superman already. But so the way they present it is as if we know the character already, which is bad storytelling. But luckily, as I said, the character has so much emotional currency that in fact that bad storytelling is forgiven by a lot of us, especially a lot of Superman fans, because we get why those emotional moments are emotional, because we know the character, and we know the character from the comics, and we know that it resembles some of his origin stories in the comics, those moments, and therefore we have this kind of internal reference to what they're trying to show as the character struggle. However, for somebody who isn't into Superman at all, I don't think this is a very good Superman introduction. I don't think this is a very good way of defending him against the criticisms that have been levied against him as being kind of outmoded and overpowered, and an uninteresting character, because ultimately you can't harm him. And the whole point of the film was that Superman suffering, not his weakness isn't kryptonite, but it's like an emotional kryptonite, as they called it. So we're looking at the emotional struggle of becoming Superman, but we do not get that properly in the movie. We just get kind of references to that in between action set pieces. And also, as I said in my last video, you don't get a sense of why this guy is becoming Superman. All that he is told during his life is that, from what we saw of the flashbacks, is that human beings aren't very, very nice. So what's the point in really saving these characters when all they do is just torment you and treat you like an alien, like an alienated figure? Now, that would have been fine to have that side of things if you had have had some other side of it, where you show where he gets this sense that he should be heroic from, and that doesn't come from Clark Kent, and that doesn't come from any of the other characters, really. So anyway, for the sake of time, I'm going to try and rush through the next parts of the points that Terrance made. Now, we've done 2 and 3, which was the character development. He said it was, this is a point. He said that it would have elongated the movie if you had more character development? Did we really want that? To that I say there's I'd say in that 2.5 hour movie, maybe 2 hours of it was action set pieces. So I think, yeah, there was time to take some of those action scenes out and actually give us some more character development. And especially with the older Clark, there was a lot more development of character with the younger Clark, even though it was very, very one note. You know, everyone's bullying him. He's very angry. He's very sullen. He looks like an emo kid. Who's going to grow up to listen to heavy metal and take drugs. It doesn't look like a Superman character, that is supposed to be this kind of beacon of hope. Which, by the way, that isn't my interpretation. Which I think it's all of our interpretation that Superman is is this kind of beacon of hope. But it's also stated in the film itself that he's supposed to be this beacon of hope. So it's not like critics are just coming out of nowhere and saying, hey, wait a second, this movie isn't very hopeful. It doesn't give you a sense. It gives you actually a quite palpable sense of dread about the likelihood of this character. It doesn't give you a sense like, oh wow, this character's our savior. And that is exactly what the film is trying. It's like it's telling you that he's this, but he just isn't in the film. He really, really isn't. So that's not us putting that on the film. The film says constantly, frequently referencing these kind of Jesus Christ-like Christian imagery to put that at the forefront and to kind of stamp that into our heads. This character is the savior of some kind of savior figure. So anyway, let's go on to part 4 of his critique. People are complaining that now that the film models itself on other films like Matrix and etc. etc. To be honest, I agree with that element of what he said. It doesn't matter if a film kind of copies from successful films, as long as it does it well. Now, The Matrix, I do agree, was a good movie. A number of other movies he referenced, like Avengers and stuff like that. I thought the Avengers was good, but I'm not as crazy about it as most of people are who say it's the best comic book movie of all time. I still think that place is held for Batman and Batman Begins and The Watchmen, but that's just me. And Sin City, those are the comic book movies that I think are much, much better. But yeah, sure, he said that, some critics are saying that it's just a mishmash of other popular movies. And I agree that it is, with the critics, that in some ways it is, but I mean, it's bad in its own right. Even in the unique elements of its storytelling, it's bad because the way it tells stories, there's a reason why filmmakers haven't told stories like that in past, because it doesn't work, and that's what The Man of Steel so obviously proved, and which I hope they were going to try and address in a second movie, rather than try and do some other cash cow, because this hasn't worked, and Iron Man 3 destroyed it in the box office. So the Superman was not the success that Superman fans hoped. It did not really address a lot of the complaints that we as Superman fans who read the comics know. Actually, this character is really, really awesome, especially how he's been developed, even in the comics, into a darker tone, a more realistic, a more contemplative terms of what this character would actually mean if he were in some kind of real world setting. The comics have done that a lot better. Birthright, Earth One, etc. Like taking you into kind of an alien world. And let me talk about this kind of alien world element of it for a second, because I have some, just so I can show just how badly it was done in terms of like this supposedly being a real world Superman. Now let's look at just the opening scene I'll use as an example, and the whole kind of Kryptonian storyline running through the Man of Steel. Now, part of the problem with this movie was the kind of mishmash of what tone are you going for? Are you going for a comic book movie, like a really, really comic-y style where people are like, will say things like, release the world engine? Or are we going for a more real world tone Superman, where, you know, we're looking at, okay, what if Superman actually existed in the real world? And that was one of the selling points of the movie itself. Now, Krypton. Now, I don't want to nitpick, but I'm going to nitpick because I'm saying, like, I like the Krypton scene, but immediately when analysing it after, you can see why you kind of just felt, this is really weird. This is just a really weird way to begin a kind of, you know, to enter us into this world where we're supposed to believe that a Superman can actually exist, or a or an alien civilization could exist like Krypton. So the whole story, the whole backstory of the Kryptonians is that apparently they haven't had children in years, and that they just have children through they artificially breed children to take on certain roles, such as, you know, farmer, or I don't know, scientist, or leader, political leader, and etc., etc. So their destinies are not, you know, chosen by themselves, but are dictated by their society. Now, one of the things that stood out for me is, then why are there marriages in this society? Surely a society that encourages, you know, lack of, that encourages this kind of predetermined, you know, view of, you know, like what each person born into that society is going to do, would, you know, if you think about it logically, they wouldn't have marriages, and they certainly wouldn't have houses of El. You know, Kal-El comes from the house of El, of Lana and Jor-El. Now, why would you have a house of El? Why, you know, I thought it was a very, very weird choice the way they created Krypton. I thought futuristic, highly advanced alien civilization would not be like the Knights of the Round Table and be speaking in this kind of, you know, high-blown kind of, you know, they would have advanced to a level of technology where there'd be, you know, more like cityscapes and, you know, like how human beings probably, you know, have evolved in a sense. You know, the all of the kind of elements of what that Kryptonians are. Why are there flying dragon animals? You know, in what is probably the modern kind of hub of that whole civilization, where Jor-El is kind of addressing the council. Now, again, I don't want to nitpick, but this is what I'm saying. These are the moments that kind of take you out of the movie, and there's just this consistent lack of logic to the story, where you don't even realize it at first, but you're just like, there's something about this that makes me uncomfortable. If you look at stories about societies where they just breed children for the sake of the efficiency of making sure there's enough people to fill certain roles in that particular society, the first thing they do is they cut out sexuality and marriage, because that will encourage people to want to have children. But let's say we don't even go into it that deeply. The second thing you would think is, why would there be houses of El? Who would be the person's heir for there to be a house of El? If these people aren't supposed to be having children, they're not going to have a house of L, or a house of Zod, or or any of this. It just doesn't make any sense. Thirdly, when the council actually arrested Zod for sedition and for planning this coup to overtake Krypton, and they send him to the Phantom Zone, why are they not against what Lara L has done? Surely she should have been arrested as well. It's made quite open that they've had the first natural birth on the planet for thousands of years, and it doesn't seem like the council members are that enlightened to just, even though the planet is about to be destroyed, to just let that go. That is basically high treason, as Zod kind of mentions right at the end. So the fact that we've had a boy child, which sounds like something from the 15th century. Why is this in the futuristic? But anyway, we've had this boy child. Why? Yeah, why aren't they arresting her for And I know that you could say, well, we don't have time to linger on such things. But if you're going to go for a film that's supposed to be a realistic depiction of an advanced alien civilization, then give us that. And the problem with it, I would say, which is even bigger a problem, is they actually have it in the comics. If you read the comics of Superman, they have how such a society might be constructed, and it's a lot more intelligent and a lot more believable than the mess they created in terms of creating this advanced alien civilization. So it's these kind of lapses in logic, which I'm trying to say, in this movie, that kind of completely take you out of the movie. Moving on, 5, he says that people complaining that there's too much action are just bandwagoners, and they're, how can you complain there's too much action? That's like complaining there's too much money, that you have too much money, to quote him. Now, I don't even think I have to really dignify that with a kind of answer. I mean, obviously there can be too much action in a movie. If there's too much action in a movie, here's what's too much action in a movie. You've got a 2.5-hour movie with a 50-minute final action sequence, which is all action, which is all just two invulnerable men punching each other back and forth, which is supposed to have some kind of emotional resonance, because it's a Superman story. So you've got 50 minutes of that at the end of the 2.5-hour movie. You've got plenty of action set pieces during the movie. You've got a rushed characterization, so you don't even care. So, like, at least 40, according, you take Rotten Tomatoes as a kind of, aggregate of, what people feel about the movie. At least 46% of people didn't connect to the character because of how much action sequences there were getting in the way of just having calm moments where we could get to know and reflect upon who these actual characters are. Now, let's just finish off. Well, I agree with him about the movie industry as a money-making industry, which is why I think they should make good films, because good films tend to make more money. And have the critical reception, which will lead to you being able to have a very, very successful sequel as well. Yes, I have to do a third part of this video, but I have a few more things to say.